What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We have another fantastic episode for you guys today here. You might be wondering what happened to us last week, or like during Thanksgiving week. Well, we apologize. I had some things come up personally that I had to take care of. I did not have a chance to be able to jump on and give you guys the best analysis in the world that we want to give you here at the Fantasy Coaches. So I do apologize for that. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a good first week of the fantasy playoffs here without us. But we're back here. We're better than ever. Unfortunately, Coach Tyler can't be on today's show, so it's just going to be me, guys. But that means we're going to have a really quick and easy show here tonight, guys. We're going to go through the news and injury updates from Week 15, and then we're going to get into Waiver Wire. So if you were still playing fantasy, let's talk about some waivers to pick up for you. So it's all going to be really quick. The quickest video you're going to get, guys, to give you guys the best fantasy analysis in a quick, short period of time without going too crazy into details on everything that's going on in the world. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some fantasy, and we are going to start us up now. So Week 15, plenty of injuries to talk about here, plenty of things going on here. A lot of big names that you see on the screen here. If you're not watching live on our YouTube channel, you're doing it wrong. But if you're not, that's okay too. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, great way to listen to our podcast as well. But starting here at the top, rookie Trey Benson from the Arizona Cardinals suffered an ankle injury. He left that game in Week 15 here. No word or not if that's going to be a long-term thing or not. Again, he wasn't making much of an impact. Nick Chubb, broken foot. He will be out the remainder of the season here. What does this mean then for the Cleveland Browns backfield? You're looking at Jerome Ford, who we'll talk about in a few, set to take over and start once again for the Cleveland Browns, a player who was averaging around 10 fantasy points per game in the first portion of the season when Nick Chubb wasn't on the field. Again, this could also bring back, oh God, I can't talk today, guys. Deontay Foreman, Pierre Strong, one of those guys might also step up for those people who play in Dynasty and those deeper man leagues. Jalen McLaughlin, quad injury here. Didn't hear much about what happened to McLaughlin. He did leave the game and did not return. Don't know if his status for Week 16 is available or not. We'll have to wait and see here, but it's okay. We'll find out, I'm sure, soon in a few weeks here. But again, he wasn't making a major impact for our fantasy lineups. Alec Pierce, concussion, likely out Week 16. Alvin Kamara, this is going to be interesting here. Groin injury, left in the third quarter of the game there and didn't really come back in. Kendre Miller kind of took over at the end of the game here. Surprisingly, a team that's kind of still in contention. So this could mean that Alvin Kamara's injury is a little bit more shakier than we might realize. It's something to monitor through the week here. But again, this is a chance he could miss. The Saints, again, at this point are kind of out of it. They have a slight chance, but they might want to be able to go out and find out what they have in Kendre Miller. Alvin Kamara's already older. Why push him to that limit here? So we'll have to wait and see. One of the most devastating injuries to skilled players this year, Dave Montgomery, major knee injury here, is going to be out the remainder of the season here. So what does this do for the Lions backfield? That means Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get an opportunity to see a giant workload in this Lions offense here, but he's not going to be the only one. Look for Craig Reynolds, a guy who I think can kind of take some of that Dave Montgomery work and be useful in fantasy in deeper man leagues this year. Craig Reynolds he's a solid, scrappy, veteran type of running back here. And if the Lions are smart, they're not going to overwork their young running back and as they're trying to make a playoff run. So we could see Craig Reynolds be a big part. Also Simon Alkovich, the rookie running back for the Lions. I'm probably butchering his name completely wrong, but he's a guy who kind of turned into a running back in the NFL. So something to keep in mind there. So the Lions backfield is going to be a lot of things that are going crazy there. Again, these are just some things. George Pickens, Ken Walker missed Week 15 there. Hopefully they can come back for Week 16. For the Chiefs, for the NFL, it's probably a bigger thing, but Patrick Mahomes' ankle injury, if I'm not mistaken, is supposedly a low ankle sprain. He's going to be week to week. We'll have to wait and see if this is going to be a long-term issue. You've seen quarterbacks kind of play on these low ankle sprains. I think he won the Super Bowl 2 years ago on a low ankle sprain. So we'll have to wait and see if Pat Mahomes is going to play or not. Again, if not, it's going to be Carson Wentz, which I don't really think it's much of a difference for this passing game for the Chiefs because they're not like this passing game for the Chiefs was a big fantasy relevant thing. DeAndre Hopkins was kind of inconsistent. Lately Travis Kelce's kind of fallen back down to earth. Noah Gray kind of pops up from here to here, the big touchdown, but no one really on the Chiefs really did all that great. If anything, it's downgrading the Chiefs passing game. But again, it's not going to be a major thing from Pat Mahomes to Carson Wentz because they just weren't doing anything already this year. So what's the big difference? If anything, we might see a more focus on the run game here. Maybe Isaiah Pacheco or even Kareem Hunt gets a little bit more work on the ground here because of Carson Wentz is in the game. So that might be helpful for week 16 and maybe week 17 if the Chiefs go down that road. If it was me, I'd probably sit Mahomes. I think they're in a good enough situation that they could take a break next week. Desmond, thank you so much. Appreciate that. They play Houston next week here. I think they can beat Houston with Carson Wentz if they needed to. So I'm not overly concerned. And then they got Pittsburgh. Again, I think they can beat Pittsburgh with Carson Wentz. Their defense is what's been keeping them really in competitiveness in games here. The offense is not doing that great. So we'll have to see what Pat Mahomes does there. A good chance he probably does play, but if not, Carson Wentz isn't a major downgrade for this passing game. Jalen Waddle, knee injury. He did not come back in that game in week 15. Apparently, everything looks okay with him, which is a great news for fantasy owners. Hopefully, he can kind of bounce back after a 2-target game with no receptions. And Miami was a shitbag this past week. As you see, my Dolphins flag in the background. Not very happy with that offense there. Tommy DeVito suffered a concussion, so the Giants are going to be probably down to their 4th-string quarterback here. Tim Boyle. Drew Lock's dealing with an ankle injury. Tommy DeVito, again, likely probably going to miss week 16, which means Tim Boyle is probably going to start. I don't know if that's going to be good or not for Malik Neighbors here. It worked in garbage time, so hopefully they can kind of go back to that again this week. Zach Ertz, concussion. Again, good chance he misses week 16 here. And Geno Smith got a pretty nasty knee injury here. Again, I haven't heard word if that's going to be a long-term thing or not there. He was hobbling around throughout the game last night once he came out. And the Seahawks really need him, to be honest, because Sam Howell looked horrible in his first game as a Seattle Seahawk. So we'll have to wait and see on Geno. But again, Geno wasn't probably a quarterback you're relying on too much unless you were in Superflex League. So, all right. So that's the news for this week here. Hopefully some of these players don't miss any time here. But obviously guys like Dave Montgomery, Nick Chubb, running backs out for the season. But we do have replacements we're going to talk about right now. After... Oh, one too far there, guys. Yeah. All right. So let's start with quarterbacks. All right. Quarterback options this week here. If you're still looking for a quarterback, you might be scrambling around still, maybe in Superflex leagues. Definitely if you're streaming quarterbacks all season. Top options this week, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has been fantastic since week 10. He's been playing really good fantasy football, averaging around 18, 19 fantasy points per game. He had a big blowout game this week here. Following a bye here, he seemed to really kind of settle down here. Found his connection with Devontae Adams here. So, the Jets play the Rams this week, who I think are kind of a up and down secondary. So Aaron Rodgers could be in for a really good week. If you're looking for quarterback still, he's an option. You're getting desperate. Again, Cooper Rush has looked better, played better the last 2 games here, in the last 2 weeks here now. And then they play Tampa Bay this week here. Drake May, still an option out there for you in fantasy if you're looking for a quarterback. Mac Jones, if you're getting absolutely desperate, I don't know why you would even be considering starting Mac Jones, but there's options out there for those who need. These guys all kind of have favorable matchups this week that you could try to take advantage of. Probably more in Superflex leagues than in a 1 QB league. Aaron Rodgers might be the one exception. In Dynasty leagues, start picking up some of these backups. If you're desperate right now, Carson Wentz might be starting. Tim Boyle might be starting. Dorian Thompson-Robinson might be starting. Desmond Ridder is likely to start tonight, and he plays well enough. He might let him play it off next week, see what happens. Spencer Rattler filled in for Heener this past week here, Jake Heener. Maybe they give Rattler another shot while Derek Carr is out. And then, again, Mason Rudolph filled in for Will Levis. Looked a little bit better for the offense, obviously, once again. Maybe he's getting another shot for the starting job over the last few weeks here. So there's a lot of backup quarterbacks. And if you're playing in Dynasty Superflex, you have options to go out there and grab some of these guys here. I would say the most realistic 2 starters are probably Tim Boyle and Spencer Rattler, I would assume. Maybe Mason Rudolph. They didn't say anything about Dorian Thompson yet. And Carson Wentz, like I mentioned before, we don't know if Pat Mahomes is going to miss time and whatnot. But again, for quarterbacks, it's not too many options that you're really going after here in week 16 of the playoffs. So the running backs actually have options for us right now, and it's something that we really need to take into consideration here. The top option for most, most leagues right now, probably Jerome Ford is out there, likely going to get his chance to be the starter once again here for the Cleveland Browns here. And when he was playing in the early portion of the season, he was averaging around 10 fantasy points per game. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't poor either. He kept you afloat as an RB2. And if they play Dorian Thompson-Robinson, we might see the Browns run the ball even a little bit more here. So Jerome Ford is an option to go out there and get. Kendre Miller, we'll have to wait and see if Alvin Kamara is going to miss any time with his groin injury here. But Kendre Miller has an explosiveness that the Saints haven't really had a chance to show off on the field yet. And if they were smart, they'd probably sit Alvin Kamara and throw Kendre Miller in and give him opportunity here. And the matchup against the Packers this week, not a terrible matchup here. So he might be worth picking up now and seeing what happens with Kamara. And again, if Kamara plays, you just drop Miller. Who cares? But it stops any other fantasy manager. You're still playing in the playoffs, or keeps yourself a guy if you need him. Senor McCormick, we'll have to see how well he plays tonight. I don't know. Definitely a great one, Desmond. Dropping Braylon Allen for Jerome Ford ASAP. Yeah, Braylon Allen actually played fewer snaps than Isaiah Davis this past week, the third string running back. So it kind of shows you, I think, what the Jets starting to feel here. Isaiah Davis is starting to rise while Braylon Allen is falling. But McCormick is going to get a chance to shine tonight here. We'll see what happens with that if he actually keeps a starting job or it's just a full-blown committee. He might just be really far down on this list. Tajay Spears, he's probably not as available as many people in leagues would have, but Tony Pollard did get banged up last week here. I don't know if it definitely wasn't something that kept him out of the game, but he was banged up. And Spears saw a big receiving value in week 15 here. So potentially able to keep that up going into this coming week here. Spears is someone that could be worth grabbing. Kamai Vidal, he kind of took over this Chargers backfield, even though it was not a good backfield to take over, but he played significantly more snaps than Gus Edwards. I think it was like a 60-30 split in terms of snap count. Vidal might have, again, easier matchup hopefully this coming week here compared to what we saw this past week. So Vidal might be an option. Craig Reynolds, I kind of mentioned him already once, but definitely a really intriguing option here. If the Lions decide to kind of give, Gibbs some more rest because they need him for not the fantasy playoffs, for their playoff run, they need Gibbs there. So Reynolds might have a big shot at having a bigger workload week 17, week 18, if you play into week 18. So he's another option. And Ty Johnson, again, deeper leagues probably, but if you're just looking for a dart throw, Ty Johnson has receiving value in this Bills offense here, and we saw it this past week here. So a question in the chat from Bryce, down 28, playing Bowers, need a flex options, Jones, Addison, or more here. Oof, that is a tough one here. If I'm going to go for PPR, I'm probably going to lean. I want to lean Aaron Jones here. I really do believe that that Minnesota is going to be able to have a chance to run the ball here. We've seen it the last few weeks where Chicago's run defense has been terrible, allowing big chunk plays to running backs. We saw it last week with Isaiah Guerrero having a major game, and even Patrick Taylor, if you remember that name, also did pretty decent last week here. I think Jones is the safe option for me personally this week. But if you want to go wide receiver because it is PPR league here, I'd probably slightly lean DJ Moore because I'm assuming that Minnesota's going to get ahead in this game here, and the Bears are going to have to fight their way back, allowing Moore to see tons of targets. Vikings secondary has been a little shaky this season here, especially with wide receiver ones, and Moore is the wide receiver one for the Bears, despite the touchdowns to Coda Keenan Allen. And Jordan Allison's fine too. I just don't expect Jordan Allison to have a major game. Again, probably 60 yards and a touchdown for Addison is probably a decent day for him. But I don't expect what we saw in week 14, where he just blew up last week. I don't expect that in a game tonight against the Bears. So the Bears secondary is decent. It's one of their better portions of their defense. They still have great cornerbacks. So Bryce, that's how I feel. Aaron Jones, if not, if you want a wide receiver, I like more. Again, like I said, dynasty leagues, again, look for Craig Reynolds as a big pickup for dynasty and managers right now. If you're looking for a running back, he'd be the guy to go after. Ty Johnson, maybe DJ Dallas with Trey Benson banged up here. He's the next man up in terms of a backup running back, worth putting on your roster if you're still looking for running back help right now. Over to wide receivers here. There are some options here, obviously, for the normal redraft leagues. You're looking at Romeo Doubs coming back first game, 2 touchdowns. It wasn't a lot of yardage, but 2 touchdowns is 2 touchdowns. And if he's getting red zone looks here, you want that in fantasy. Rashard Bateman has kind of just been really good, a little up and down, but been really good for big upside for fantasy. Deontay Deontay Johnson. Yeah, Deontay Johnson, I think he's getting released from the Ravens today here. I think they mutually parted ways. So Bateman is continuing going to see a big workload in this offense here. I still like him a lot. Jalen McMillan having back-to-back really strong games. And the big thing is that he's actually seeing like 7 or 8 targets per game. It's not like he's doing it on 3 or 4 targets and having a big game. He's seeing a bigger workload in the offense. They play Dallas this week here, and a secondary that had lost some key players over the last few weeks here. So McMillan could be an option as a flex option. Jalen Coker from the Carolina Panthers, again, out for 3 weeks, comes back first game, has 100 yards and a touchdown. I know a lot of it was off of one play, but he played the most snaps among wide receivers here. He's clearly a big part of this Panthers offense here, and they're going to be a team that's going to consistently be down. Coker's another flex option you can go out there and get. Quentin Johnston has back-to-back 40-yard games with a touchdown here. Again, he's fine, solid, can be worthy of a flex play. Malik Washington is a name to throw out there just because Waddle is fine, but maybe he sits for a week. Maybe, he needs more time. Malik Washington was kind of basically used as that Devon A-chain type of player as a wide receiver here, kind of a guy the Miami Dolphins got into space. They played the 49ers this week. I would assume the 49ers are going to be locking down guys like Tyreek Hill and Jonas Smith, allowing Malik Washington to kind of do his own thing. So in deeper man leagues, Malik Washington's definitely a name to go after. Again, Ray McLeod as well. He's been pretty solid over the last month. He's been averaging around 10 fantasy points per game. We'll see how he does tonight. In Dynasty, Kevin Austin Jr., again, it's not a pretty name, but the name out there for deeper Dynasty leagues there. He's playing number 2 on the Saints right now, seeing the second most snaps next to MVS here. Matt Collins is always a guy to go after. Josh Reynolds got signed over with the Jaguars this past week here, had a target and a catch. He could end up seeing a little bit more work as the next 2 games go on, as he gets more involved in the offense. And Diami Brown, someone has to step up for the Commanders' number 2 guy, especially if Zach Ertz is going to miss. Brown usually is a high target or high snap count kind of player, so opportunity knocks when you see a lot of snaps. But again, wide receivers, they're fine. Again, you're not really likely going after many of these guys in semifinals, but you might have to, and there's some options for a flex play this week for sure. And last but not least, the tight end position, the position we all truly hate with a passion here. But the options here at the top here, Brandon Strange. Looked pretty decent in the first half of the first portion of the season when Evan Ingram was out. I was averaging like 8 fantasy points per game through weeks 2 to 5. Pretty solid play. And then obviously Evan Ingram came back and he disappeared. First game without Evan Ingram, Brandon Strange, 11 targets, 10 receptions, solid yardage here. He's clearly going to be involved in this offense. I know the Jaguars had the ball a ton this past week here, but going to be involved. They play the Raiders this coming week here. Raiders have been terrible against tight ends this season here. You just waiting to see it. Just wait and see. Watch Kyle Pitts actually come up and actually does do something this night. But prior to that, they've been really bad against tight ends. Stone Smart, Chargers tight end here, played pretty well as the starter for the game. He fumbled, but still played pretty well. Obviously, the tight end position is an important piece for the Chargers offense, worth picking up. Chico Conqua, again, probably plays better if Mason Rudolph is playing. So we'll have to wait and see if Rudolph gets the start in week 16. But Chico Conqua, has options there. Noah Gray obviously is an option here, continues to be a big part of the offense, but don't know how he would be if Pat Mahomes doesn't play. Austin Hooper, he's going to get you 3 catches, probably 30 yards. And if you're in deeper man leagues, it's something, especially for the tight end position. It's been so bad lately here. Mac Jones loved peppering his tight end. Strange is a solid streamer. Absolutely. He's definitely going to be a big streaming option for this week here. And then dynasty leagues, again, So Smart might be out there. Austin Hooper might be out there. Daniel Bellinger might be out there. Had a lot of snaps and targets. Jordan Akins, if David Njoku misses again. So, but one really solid tight end option there, and Brenton Strange I really love to go after if you're looking for tight ends and you're struggling to find a consistent option. Like again, if guys like Kate Auden, or I'm trying to think of someone else who's been playing pretty low lately, Kyle Pitts, I guess. Strange is an option that I would highly consider going after for fantasy. So. But that is going to wrap our show up tonight, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I told you guys it would be a 20-minute episode this week. Oh, I didn't say that, but I'd say it'd be a quick episode, and it really is 20 minutes here. So we appreciate you guys tuning in as always, guys. We apologize for the last week and a half. Actually, this season, I actually have been a little off on this season here. I've been a little busier than usual. Desmond, thank you for the subscription. I definitely appreciate that. But we're definitely going to have an episode on Thursday, guys, this week here. We're going to give you a breakdown of all the starting sits for week 16 here. And we're going to help you guys get that championship because that's what we're here to do. So Thank you all for listening live on our YouTube channel tonight. We appreciate it. Desmond, thank you for the great job work. Thank you. Appreciate that comment. And continue to tune in, whether it's on our YouTube channel at thefantasycoaches.com or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you guys as well here. Coach Tyler will be back on Thursday with us here and talking fantasy. So we thank you guys all for tuning in and listening. See you all next time and have a good one.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark Kents. I've been feeling super duper. How the heck they know the future? Come with me, don't